God has plans to prosper you, give you hope and a future too. So let me remind you of what you have the power to do.
You've been on a journey, trying to find your way. Like the sun, you're rising, 'cause today's your day to unlock every gift inside. Let your potential flow. Don't let anybody kill your vibe. Time to bust up and show. Gotta keep on reaching, keep believing. Act like you know you can win. Live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra. We've got wellness, church by phone. You don't even have to leave your home to be inspired. To rise a little higher with Cassandra. They said you'd never make it, but you're still here. Kept on pushing through all your doubts and fears. Never let a hater see you sweat. Remember who you are. When they go low, let them reap what they sow while you go far. Gotta keep on reaching, keep believing. Baby, shine like a star. You can win, live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra. If you got haters, they gon' hate. Keep your head up and just be great. It's your season, your winning season with Cassandra. Rise up, time to get on your grind. Go after your dreams, no time to fall behind. Push till the end and never give in. It's your winning season, get ready to win. Keep moving forward and never look back. It's time to get motivated with Cassandra Mack. You can win, live your dreams, reach your goals. Be happy, you can make it. Get motivated with Cassandra Mack. We've got wellness, church by phone. You don't even have to leave your home to be inspired. To rise a little higher with Cassandra Mack.
Today we're talking about an insidious type of warfare of the mind. And warfare of the mind is a form of spiritual warfare, specifically how AI and its constant praising and flattering has warped the way that many people think. Today's video is being brought to you by my book, Simple Prayers for Spiritual Warfare. This is a very powerful book of simple, Bible-based, tactical, practical prayers that can be said in 1 minute or less to help you stand in your power and victory as a believer when what you're battling is spiritual in nature. There's also a spiritual warfare assessment guide to help you gauge if the situation that you're dealing with is spiritual warfare in nature. The link is in the video description box for those who are interested in finding out more. So, we live in a world that is increasingly digital. We all know that. And AI has become very prominent and a constant companion to many, from chatbots and virtual assistants, AI virtual assistants, to helping people creatively, to search engines, using it like Google. AI is designed to be helpful, to be engaging, to be incredibly responsive. But one of the key features that you'll notice about AI, hidden in plain sight, is the constant use of flattery. And unlike human flattery, which a lot of times you can gauge that, you can be like, okay, I see that they're coming on really strong. What do they want? I see that they are being overly admiring and they just met me every bit of 5 minutes ago. What are they really after? So a lot of times when it's a human being that you're dealing with, you can easily see that, right? Because you're looking at facial expressions and body language, tone of voice, and so forth. But AI generated flattery, AI generated praise is a little different because it's more subtle. And it is woven into the fabric of the interaction. So this creates a subtle but yet powerful psychological effect. Remember, the Bible tells us that it's the little foxes that spoil the vine. And the reason why little foxes spoil the vine is because they're little, they seem harmless. But the thing about little foxes is they eventually grow up to be big foxes. And so this constant engineered validation, it poses a risk to our mental health over time because it warps the self-perception. It erodes our own thinking for ourselves, thinking critically, thinking cause and effect. Like, if I do this, what are the possible outcomes? So there's no space to really think about, if I say this to this person, what are the possible outcomes? And it creates an unhealthy dependency. They have people who use AI like a therapist, and it's understandable. People are lonelier than ever, but you gotta remember that humans are meant to connect with other humans. And so let's look at flattery from a biblical perspective, and then we're going to look at the mental health dangers of constant AI flattery, so that when you're using AI, for those that use it, you're using it with a critical eye, and you're using it very intentionally and deliberately, and not allowing it to use you. Proverbs 29:5 says, a man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. So look at what the scripture is saying. A man who flatters his neighbor, by man they mean mankind, person, spreads a net for his feet. And so why is that? Well, first of all, what is flattery? Flattery is insincere, inauthentic praise motivated by a hidden agenda. That's what makes flattery so toxic. Flattery is not the same thing as a genuine, authentic compliment from the heart. So when someone is giving you a genuine, authentic compliment from the heart, they're telling you something they like, admire, respect about you, with no strings attached, no ulterior motive. They simply want to voice their admiration, their like, their respect about a particular thing about you. That's the key. It is upfront and it is honest. But flattery is insincere. You don't even know if they mean it. And number two, it comes with a hidden motive, with a hidden agenda. This is why when you deal with a narcissist, one of the very tactics that they use during the love bombing stage is flattery, because what flattery does is it feeds the ego. And by feeding the ego, it gets you in a state where you don't guard your heart, right? The Bible tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for the issues of your life flow out of it. And so it gets us to not guard our heart, so that a person can fast forward intimacy that you really don't know this person. And it makes you bypass your own inner wisdom and discernment. And that's the goal, right? So when a narcissist is love bombing you, they're trying to get close to you as quick as possible so that they can extract whatever it is they want, whether it's money, a place to live, just emotional supply, before the mask falls off, because they can't keep the behavior up forever. And so they're trying to get to you as quickly as possible. And flattery is the easiest way. And so flattery spreads a net. Now, a net is a trap. And this is why a lot of times when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you feel trapped by their gaslighting, trapped by their lies, trapped by their deception. You feel trapped by, you're still waiting for that original person that you met that seemed so nice when it was just a character that they were playing. And so flattery does create traps. So we have to be mindful of that, right? So let's look at 3 ways that this constant flattery from AI, can warp our thinking. Number 1, Flattery can amplify and reinforce unhealthy thoughts. And so there are people in the world, and any of us at any time can have an unhealthy thought, but there are people in the world that are emotionally unhinged and who are mentally off. And if AI is reinforcing that these thoughts are healthy, good thoughts that should be acted upon, then you will have people who are bleeding out their trauma all over the world. And so if it is affirming an unhealthy thought as opposed to getting you to question that way of thinking and develop a more balanced perspective mindset, this is not a good thing. And so healthy psychological development requires self-awareness. And if there's no self-awareness, because rather than talking to another human being, you're getting all of your feedback about your thoughts and beliefs from AI, which is designed to flatter, then you're not getting an accurate self-assessment where there's balanced feedback. As human beings, we grow through gentle correction. We grow through challenges and occasionally hearing no. But AI removes this crucial balancing act, and it creates a frictionless environment where every thought we have is seen as brilliant, preventing the kind of productive mental workout that leads to genuine growth and learning, right? Think about when you have to solve a puzzle or when you're learning math. It is that critical process that allows you to apply what you learn into the real world. But if in the absence of critical thinking, in the absence of the resistance, you don't develop important muscles. It even happens when you're at the gym, right? When you're lifting weights, the weights are heavy. Even if it's lightweight, in the very beginning, it's uncomfortable when you're doing multiple reps. But over time, it is through the lifting weights that you begin to see muscle development. Without the weights, you don't see the muscle development. And so without the weight of an occasional no, without the weight of someone giving you pushback on an idea that is not healthy, we don't grow. And then we become people who are very difficult to get along with because we're so easily triggered. We're so easily offended because we're not used to hearing the word no. Boundaries are healthy. Boundaries and limits are what helps with discipline. And discipline is one of the fruits of the Spirit. I think Kevin Hart, the comedian Kevin Hart, said, we need no friends. We need friends that will say, no, don't do that. No, don't say that. No, don't try that. We need some no friends. Because that's what enables the balance so that we don't do things in the heat of the moment that we may come to later regret. We don't do things when we look back, we say, what was I thinking? And that no friend who really has your best interest at heart, and every no is not coming from a hater, who really has your best interest in heart because they are invested in you and you're invested in them. We're not talking about random strangers on the internet, but we're talking about like friends and family, people who you know that will say, no, that don't do that. Don't go up to her and say that. Don't go up to him and start yelling. Don't do that. Because it may produce an outcome that you're not prepared to handle, and it may escalate into something that it doesn't have to be. So you need to know people every once in a while. Because what happens is when we're constantly hearing that everything we say is brilliant, this creates a dangerous feedback loop because AI might be affirming a potentially dangerous behavior or a distorted self-view. And the more that you receive positive validation for a dangerous behavior or a distorted self-view, the more that that person becomes divorced from reality. And the more they do, the dangerous thing, because they're getting positive reinforcement. And this can exacerbate tendencies like extreme narcissism, extreme selfishness, making it harder for that person to engage in healthy, balanced relationships where disagreement is normal. We're not talking about constant fighting, but you're going to disagree. Even good friends disagree. Maybe you want to see this movie, they want to see a different movie. You want to have pizza, and they want to have French fries. So you're not going to agree on everything. We're all unique human beings. But AI can warp our thinking into believing that everybody who doesn't see life exactly like us is a hater. And the reality is there are different people, different perspectives. Even this channel. Everybody's not going to align with this channel. This is why you will hear me say, if the videos don't align with you, exit. No need to argue. We don't have to argue over everything. If the content is not for you, simply exit. And when you depart, I can't say this enough. We are not the airlines. You don't have to announce your departure. You can just go. But AI and social media in general can cause us to believe that the world revolves around us, and we're really making a difference by leaving a space that the person didn't even notice we were in. And so we want to be mindful of that, because it doesn't allow for true self-awareness. Now, this is what Jeremiah 1:7 says. No, let me read you a different one. This is what Jeremiah 17. I'm going to go to Jeremiah 17. This is what Jeremiah 17, verse 9 says. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Then verse 10 says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. So it starts with the heart is deceitful above all things. And so this lets us know that our emotions are fleeting. They can deceive us. And think about a time in your own life. If we're honest, we've all had times where we were upset. Maybe you're very angry. Somebody did something incredibly rude, disrespectful, and you went from 0 to 100. You were ready to let it all rip. And in the moment, the heart can deceive you into believing that cussing somebody out is the best course of action at your job. And now you in HR, or you put on a performance improvement plan, and you wish you wouldn't have cursed your coworker out. But the heart in that moment, because it's sick with so much anger, even if the anger is justified, we still got to think about the consequences of our actions. And you curse this coworker out, or worse, you put your hands on somebody. You took it to the streets. So the heart could deceive you. You know what they said, they deserve a behind whooping. Your heart could deceive you into believing that. But now you got to deal with the consequences. And so this is the danger of constant praise, being told you're always right. Think about a parent that gives their kid everything without ever saying no. They don't teach their kid boundaries. They don't teach their kid consequences to their action. It's a headache for the teachers. That child is a headache for the teachers. Or if they are hanging out with another child, and another parent is watching that child, that can be a very disrespectful child, because they're never told no. They're never told, don't do that, don't say that, that's not polite, that's not kind. And so if they're not taught those basics when they go out into the world, they're a headache for the people they come across. And it's the same thing with human beings who are adults. So the heart is deceitful. And when you are creating prompts for AI, AI don't know your heart, but it is designed to be agreeable. And so if you're in a heart place where you're about to do something that is incredibly toxic and that's going to have negative consequences, AI may encourage that. So you have to have your own critical thinking mind. This is why it's important to let the same mind that is in Christ be in you so that you can pull in the reins. So it's not that AI is inherently bad. It's that you got to be discerning. Any tool can be used to build or destroy. It is how we use it. Tools can build and tools can destroy. Second is the erosion of critical thinking. It erodes our critical thinking. Critical thinking is a mental muscle. It requires exercise. It requires challenge. It requires the practice of evaluating information from multiple angles. And so constant AI flattery is the psychological equivalent of putting the muscle in a grave. You're not using your muscle, your mental muscle. And so when your primary conversation partner, if AI is the primary conversation partner, when your primary conversation partner always agrees with you and praises you, you stop practicing the skill of assessing good ideas from ideas that may not be good, strong strategies from weak strategies, and factual information from misinformation because you're not using that muscle. You become less likely to question AI's output of your own ideas because the experience is so affirming. Everybody loves being affirmed and validated. The experience is so incredibly positive. But you need a little resistance every now and then. We all do. The other thing is, and we're seeing this a lot in society, is there's a lower tolerance for frustration, and people are acting out in ways where they're acting like spoiled children and they're grown adults. From having to wait online at the bank and you see that there's one teller or two tellers and everybody has things to do, everybody's just as frustrated as you, but that person who's self-absorbed is going to start yelling, carrying on. They're going to feel entitled to skip somebody. Oh, well, I have important things to do here. Well, so does everybody else on the line. Who are you to decide that what you got to do is more important than what they got to do? You are behind me online. You cannot skip me. But when a person has a diminished frustration diminished frustration for tolerance, or diminished tolerance for frustration, when they're in situations that require patience, they don't allow patience to have its full effect. Patience is a virtue. But you're not able to cultivate the fruit of patience if you never have to apply patience. And so overcoming creative blocks, working through confusion, waiting online, these things are essential for building resilience in society. You don't live by yourself. You live in a world with other people. But as people become more and more self-absorbed, they become ruder and unkinder and meaner. We just did a whole church by phone service this past Sunday called Why Are People Becoming So Incredibly Mean and Cruel? And so when you're faced with a real world challenge that doesn't offer immediate praise or quick answers or an easy solution, it's easy to become unhinged. Look at all the unhinged people. If you have ever been in a situation at the DMV, the bank, the supermarket, put in the comment section if you witnessed somebody becoming unhinged over something that is not that serious, but they were not able to exercise their patience muscle. And a lot of times this comes from constant praise. Even God doesn't constantly praise us. He brings conviction to our heart when he needs to turn a stony heart into clay. when he needs to put us on the potter's wheel. Not only that, another way that it warps our thinking is that it gets us dependent on external validation. This is not good. See, the constant drip feed of AI praise trains the brain to rely on an external source of self-worth. And the question shifts from, do I think this is good? Do I think this is the right thing to do? To what will AI think of this? As if it's a human being. And then your internal metric for success, for self-worth, for self-esteem, become dependent on the algorithm's validation. It becomes dependent on AI's validation. This undermines your own emotional mastery. This undermines the development of a stable, internalized sense of self-esteem that can withstand external criticism and doesn't require constant praise to function. Have you ever been around someone who needed constant praise? That is emotionally exhausting, that every 5 minutes, oh, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. Oh, you're the greatest thing that ever lived. Every 2 seconds, they need that nonstop. That is a very hard individual to have to deal with because they are so deeply insecure that it drains the life force out of you. And so when we know who we are in God, it curbs the need for external validation because you can go straight to the Word and know who God created you to be. Know how you are growing in the fruit of the Spirit. Know who you are in Christ, and what you're seeking from others, you can begin to give to yourself from God through Christ by meditating on the scriptures, by affirming them aloud. You can give it to yourself. And then you become a person who people want to be around because you're a light, as opposed to someone who's constantly sucking out all of your light and they're taking all the energy out the room, so to speak. So these are some of the negatives. It also leads to increased anxiety and fragility. You ever met someone who's so fragile? And an individual who becomes accustomed to AI's constant validation, they find real world feedback, which is going to be mixed. Sometimes critical. Sometimes you're going to encounter haters. There are haters in this world. And if a hater has the power to ruin your whole day, if a hater has the power to get you caught up in an online war where you're going back and forth in the comments with someone you don't even know, they're a random stranger who you don't know from a can of paint, and you're going back and forth with this fool because they don't like something you said, they have something negative to say, so what? So what? Are they God? Are they God? Are they God? No, they're not. So why does their opinion even matter? You don't even know them. So it's a mixed bag, even here on this channel. No matter how many times I reiterate that it is a Bible-based channel so that you know the type of channel you're coming to. If Bible-based wisdom and information is not for you, you can keep it moving. There are still people that will leave stupid things in the comments. There are still people that will argue how they don't like the Bible. Because if you don't like the Bible, nobody's holding a gun to your head making you come here. But because they're incredibly fragile, they're easily triggered by what's being said here. But that's not my problem. And I don't make it my problem. And I don't allow it to become my problem. And so when you are so bubbled in where it's just you and AI, it becomes harder to exist in the real world. It becomes harder to cope with setbacks. It becomes harder to learn from failure. These things are important. Failing is healthy because failing teaches you what not to do next time around. Failure is simply a gauge for growth. It's not the end of the world. Failure helps us to know, okay, what do I need to do differently? Even in business, when we fail at certain things, oh, okay, well, this won't work next quarter. Let's do this differently. Let's think of this a new way. And you're exercising your mental muscles. You're growing stronger. You actually grow smarter from your failures because you know what not to do next time around. It's a gauge for growth. Or when things don't work out the way you want, when you don't get the promotion, the ability to cope with setbacks without feeling like it's the end of the world. The ability to maintain your own confidence internally without external affirmation. Because what happens is when you can't do that, the minute somebody says something negative to you or they try to put you down, it's so internalized and it's easy to become so unhinged because it means so much to you. But when your confidence comes from within, a person can say something that is not nice and you recognize it's not nice, but you're not taking it to heart. So there could be someone that says, Cassandra, you are the ugliest person I have ever seen. And you know what my attitude is? I ain't trying to date you because I need nothing from you. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what you think about the way I look. I don't care what you think about my voice. I don't care. I just don't care. And so when you realize that your validation comes from within, knowing who you are in God, it doesn't matter if someone says, well, no, you're not that. You're not God's workmanship. You're not fearfully and wonderfully made. It becomes like a fly making noise. You give it no life and no power because you know who you are. It's internal. Here's the other thing. It creates an illusion of intimacy. I believe they even have robots where they are anatomically like women. They might have the same thing with the male version that I do not know. If you know, put it in the comments. And there are videos of people marrying robots, or I don't really know if you can call it a marriage, but people who are having some sort of ceremony where they're considering the robot like their life partner. And the danger of that is you don't know how to deal with flesh and blood human beings. And if you're like, well, I'd rather deal with robots than human beings anyway, then you don't need this video. Go live your life. Go find your happiness. Go live your life. You don't even need to be here. This message is not for you because your mind is made up that that's what you want. So advanced AI is specifically designed to simulate empathy, I said simulate, and human-like connection. They remember your name, they ask follow-up questions, they use supportive sounding language, and this simulation can be incredibly seductive, especially if you're feeling lonely, isolated, or socially anxious. And it's understandable, there's no judgment. But it's important for your own mental health, this is what I'm getting at, and your own inner well-being to recognize when you're crossing a dangerous line. And the other thing is human relationships require reciprocity. They involve the risk of rejection. They involve the risk of conflict. You're not going to see eye to eye all the time on everything. But an AI relationship feels safe. I get that. And it offers the illusion of connection. This is it. Without any of the risks. There's no risk of rejection. No risk of conflict. They're going to agree. There's no risk of them ever leaving you. And this can create a perverse incentive to withdraw from real world flesh and blood people. And the mindset becomes, why bother with the hard work of making friends when a chat box is always available, always there, always telling you what you want to hear, always agreeable. But that's not how God designed us to live. Real intimacy is built through working through conflicts, navigating disagreements, reading nonverbal cues, developing genuine empathy for others. This is what gives us mercy. Think about when someone is in distress who's a complete stranger, and you have more people filming it for content which is sick and twisted, rather than calling for help. So it begins to take away our own humanity. And it's not just AI, it's social media in general. When you are allowing it to use you instead of you critically, intentionally using it in a way that makes sense for you. And When we rely on AI for connection, it prevents the development of real world social skills. And what research is now showing is that, especially you're seeing this with Gen Z, but it's all generations. It's the baby boomers, Gen X, which is my generation, millennials, is that there's no spatial awareness, which is part of social skills. You're starting to see a lessening of spatial awareness where people just walk into you without saying, excuse me, like you're not standing there. Where there could be 10 seats on the train and the person sits right next to you, squishing you, and there's enough space for them to move over a seat or two. But they're lacking the spatial awareness because they're not interacting with other human beings, picking up on social cues. And the worst, as I said, is when someone is in distress, they're having a medical crisis. They're filming it for content. I heard a story of someone who got incredibly sick in a restaurant and they were throwing up. And an individual was filming it for content and laughing. Can you imagine if that was your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your child in distress, and people think that their distressing moment of being sick is something that should be used as comedic content? Look at the warped thinking. Look how that warps. That's a warped way of thinking. But as we move on in society, people become more and more cold-hearted because they're not dealing with other human beings. And so I'm not saying not to use AI. No. I'm saying if you choose to, that's your choice, right? I don't tell you what to do. It's your life. Do you? But if you choose to, do so with intentionality and self-control, and make sure you are the one in control and you're not losing contact with the real world. So you want to practice digital literacy, right? You have to remember that AI is not a human being. It can simulate empathy, but it's not a human being. You want to seek balanced feedback. And so intentionally seek out diverse human perspectives, even those that will challenge you. 3, cultivate healthy self-esteem from internal validation. And we have a book that helps you do that. Of course, the ultimate book that I'm always going to recommend as a believer is the Bible. But additionally, we have a book. It's called Speaking Life into Your I Am. This is a book that takes Bible verses that specifically speak to our identity as children of the Most High God. And then it walks you through the process of how to affirm that in your life. So when we say Bible verses like, for example, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, what this book does is it walks you through the process of how do you affirm that you're fearfully and wonderfully made? Why is it important to know that you're fearfully and wonderfully made? What does a fearfully and wonderfully made person, how do they show up? What do they do? How do they show up for life? And so it walks you through that. When you're the head and not the tail, that's another verse. Why is it important to affirm that? Where does headship start? Where does leadership start? So it walks you through that so that you can be not just a hearer of the word, but a doer of the word. You can make the word practical and tactical in your daily life. And that's the book Speaking Life into Your I Am, which is a book of Bible-based affirmations to activate your God-given confidence and cultivate authentic, genuine self-esteem. So those are some things that I would encourage you to do. So I want to let you know what we have going on outside of the general public videos. We have a wellness club. So a lot of you asked for that because that's the feature that comes with the conference call. So the wellness club is one of the tiers of membership here at YouTube, where you get access to a live conference call with me and other like-minded people. That happens twice a month, the first and third Wednesday of every month. And as a wellness club member, if you can't make the live call, you get access to the audio replays. And the live call, we focus on mental self-care, emotional mastery, spiritual self-care through a biblical lens. Is very therapeutic. It is a group coaching call. It's therapeutic, but it's cheaper than therapy. When you think of the cost of one therapy session, it can be $200, $300, $400 for one session. With the Wellness Club, for less than 35 cents a day, you have access to this live call that happens twice a month. Not only can you speak to me live on the phone, but during this call, but you can also come up to the mic to share what's on your heart relative to the topic of that wellness call. So you have an opportunity to hear from other like-minded believers who are focusing on their mental self-care. And you can't put a price on your mental health. You can't put a price. It is worth the investment. So I would encourage you to do that. We also have other awesome tiers. We have the channel supporters tier. Shout out to the channel supporters. We have the Faith Builders Hub, which is another amazing tier. But a lot of people ask about the wellness call. So that's why I want to make sure you know about that, because that's the one most of you ask about. The other thing is we have a workshop coming up on October 18th. And this is for dreamers, for seers, for visionaries. And it's biblical foundations to decode your dreams. And so as people of God, God speaks to us in dreams. It doesn't change because it's today's times. In biblical times, he spoke to people in dreams, right? We remember he spoke to Abraham in a vision. And Abraham had a vision that he would have as many descendants as the stars in the sky. He gave Joseph a dream at 17. And the dream came to pass decades later. If you remember the story of Joseph being thrown into a pit by his brothers. So he gave Joseph a dream. He also gave Joseph the ability to interpret other people's dreams. And so that didn't stop and only exists during biblical times. It also exists today. God speaks to people, his people, through dreams, through visions. And if you are a seer, one of the things that can be incredibly frustrating is not having a space with like-minded people who get you, because they have a similar anointing and calling on their life. But when you are the only one in your family, the only one in your friend group, the only one in whatever group you're a part of, where you are made to feel like you are weird or the odd one out, it can be incredibly disheartening. And it can cause you to not cultivate and steward the blessings and gifts that God put inside of you. And so one of the things we're going to be doing at this workshop, you're going to be connected to like-minded people. It also comes with a ebook. It's a workbook lit that is emailed to you as a PDF file for use during and after the workshop, so you can continue building. And you're going to be looking at how do you begin to understand what's being revealed to you? How do you discern the source of your dream? We're going to be talking about that. So I'm going to leave the link in the video description box. The link will take you to Eventbrite, where you can read the details of everything the workshop has to offer to see if this is something that is for you. It is a ticketed event. So I want to make sure you know about that for those who are interested. So without further ado, let me also mention Church by Phone. Every Sunday, we have a free church by phone service. It's free. It's open to the public. You can come in your pajamas, drinking your coffee, because we can't see you. And we will make you feel right at home. And it's a place where you can call in, be fed the word, get spiritually uplifted. And this coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about the locust spirit. And so a lot of people are familiar with the Bible verse that talks about how God will restore the locust years, right? And so we're going to be talking about what is a locust spirit, and how do you recognize locust-minded people so that they don't devour what God has for you, right? This is important. So we're going to be talking about that this Sunday at Church by Phone. And in our wellness meeting, which is happening next week, Wednesday. No, it was happening Wednesday the 17th is our next Wednesday wellness meeting. We're continuing our discussion on the locust years and how to reclaim what the enemy has stolen. But for this coming Sunday, Church by Phone, we're going to be talking about Joel 2:25. It's a promise. And it says, God will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. And so that's what we're going to be diving into. But how do you even recognize a locust spirit? When you're in the presence of a locust spirit, a person with a locust type of mindset that will try to devour your joy, devour your peace, devour the things that God has for you, and you are harvesting these things. You are planting seeds in the area of mental health or whatever area it is. So that's what we'll be talking about this coming Sunday. So the information for Church by Phone can be found at our ministry website. I'll leave the link in the video description box, CassandraMacMinistries.com. Last but not least, I want to say a big thank you to those of you who sow into this ministry with your financial donations. We couldn't do what we do without you. So thank you to those of you who sow with your donations. Thank you for those of you who support this ministry by way of being a channel member. We thank you for your support at the membership level. And if this channel and ministry has been a blessing to you, and it is on your heart to want to be a blessing to us financially, you can visit our website, CassandraMacMinistries.com. You'll see a button that says donate, and you can follow the prompts from there if you would like to sow into this ministry. So God bless you. Let's do our best to be kind, but let's also take our common sense with us. Talk to you soon.